All right, part of this week's homework is installing the trial software. Only install Illustrator. Remember that your trials expire in 30 days. You want to play the demonstration on how to install software that was on your overview intro page to the website. You can click on the link above to directly link to that video, or if you're already familiar on how to do that, you can go ahead and do it on your own. Just remember to only install Illustrator. If you have any questions, please make sure to contact me. Okay, the second part of your homework is the pen tool exercises and the tutorial. So if you go down to the left-hand side of the page and you go to the pen tool tutorial, it's this one here, and click on that, it'll pull up this tutorial. Now this tutorial is from a later version of the program, but it'll still work just as well. The instructions are the same. You can go through this tutorial and it talks to you a little bit more about how to control the pen tool and how to get it to do correct curves and whatnot. Okay, so we're going to go down here and you'll learn a little bit more about the adding anchor points and removing anchor points. We've already gone through some of these when I went over the pen tool, but some people do better with the written version of this. So I just want you to go through and take a look at these and see if this helps explain it a little bit more. Okay, and so you'll go through this tutorial. And then once you're finished with the tutorial, you want to go to the pen tool exercise. Now this is an Illustrator file, so if you want, you can right click it and then save it to your desktop. Okay, and what it'll do is it'll download the Illustrator file. I can minimize this really quick. And here we see it on the desktop. And what you'll want to do is you want to open that up, and it should open up in Illustrator. Now if it does download as irregular, that when you click on it you cannot open it, it'll have this .ps at the end. All you need to do is right click and remove that last .ps so that it is just .ai. That's the Illustrator extension. And then when you are done changing the name, you can just click off of it or hit return to implement the changes. And then it's going to ask you if you want to make sure you use the AI or the .ps. You say use AI, and that's the Adobe Illustrator. And now you should be able to just double click it and it'll open up. Okay. And I'm just going to double click my hand here. And you're going to go through these series of exercises. And what you're going to do is with your pen tool, it's going to tell you where you need to click so that you can kind of get a better sense for how this is done. So you start here, for example, you'd click, click, click. I'm just going to show you how you would click to make a star. Okay. And it'll basically give you instructions right next to it. Okay. And then you close the path. All right. And then you'd go to the next one so we can see it a little bit better. And as you see, it has those instructions again. And then you'd click, and it's telling you to press and hold down, and then release, and then click and hold down, and press, and release, and then click and hold down and press, and release, and then click and hold down and press, and release, and then come back over to the thing and drag here and then release when you have it. Okay, so it gives you a sense of how you control your lines when you're drawing. Okay, all right, so once you finish that one, you can go through all of the rest of these exercises so that you can kind of get a sense for it, and then you might want to just practice on your own. And then you're going to turn this one in La Lima, but you're also going to download another exercise on the website. You're also going to download the Coca-Cola logo exercise. You're going to right click on it and you're going to save it to, I'm just going to save it to my desktop, and it should be downloaded by now. And it's here, and I'm just going to double click it. It should open up in Illustrator. And then basically it's going to ask you to trace the new logo below. Okay. And you just, I would zoom into this so that you can see what you're doing. And then you'd want to click, hold down, and drag, click, hold down, and drag. And again, don't worry if you don't have, if your line isn't perfect. I'm going to go ahead and take away the fill color here, because you can always go back and correct it. Okay, and you just keep going, and I wouldn't worry too much if things are a little off, because you have those corrector tools like I mentioned, and I'm going to go through and I'll do one of those really quick, and then you can continue with your with your tracing. Okay, now you'll notice that some of these areas are a little off, so what you can do is I'm going to go and zoom into that area that I want to perfect. I'm going to go into I'm going to go into my arrow here, and I'm going to just adjust some of these, bring some of these lines in. Okay, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to bring some of these anchor points in that aren't working for me, and some of these points. Oops, there we go. And just continue to see which ones are going to help your lines better. Okay. I'll move this back a bit. All right. So you get the idea. You can just keep cleaning this up until it gives you more or less what you're working for. I notice that there's a snapping kind of effect going on right here, that when I try to push and pull, it's snapping to something. So I'm going to guess that if I go into view, it has a snap to point. I want to uncheck that. And then I'll try this again and see if I can get a better control. Yeah, I'm able to control it a little bit better so that it doesn't snap to some invisible points that I don't want. Okay. All right, so that's the Coca-Cola logo exercise. When you're finished with both of these exercises, load them onto Laulima as instructed on the homework, okay? Okay, the last part of the homework is to refine your sketch composition. We're going to take a look at a few examples on the type of feedback that you might get and what that means for you in terms of what your homework is. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and scroll this over. All right, so we're taking a look at these compositions here. Now, some of you may turn in a composition, a couple of compositions that are great, and I might choose one, say like for instance this one. And if that's the case, then what you would end up doing is you would end up taking your current composition and just maybe refining it a little. I might just say kind of refine it, clean it up so that you can easily trace and know where the lines are. See how here it's kind of a little tricky, it gets a little messy in there. And here you kind of get a sense of where you would draw the objects in Illustrator, okay? So some of you may be pretty much ready to go, and I may focus in on one and say, this one's good to go, now just refine it, okay? Or sometimes you don't even have to refine it. Somebody turns in something like this, and I said, that's a good one, turn it in, okay? Granted, these are not fantasy meal compositions. These are just compositions that I was able to locate to give you the example, okay? Now, some of you may have compositions where of your two compositions, both of them are visually interesting and working on their own level, but they're missing something. So for instance, like this one has a character, but the background isn't very well defined. And then this one here has the background, but there isn't the central character to show the action. So maybe the feedback that you would receive would be to combine both of them to see if there's a way to combine elements from both of them. And then what you would end up doing for your refining piece would be to combine those in here. You would have the combined composition, okay? Now, some of you may turn in something that neither of the two sketches are quite working. For instance, this one, there's like a lot of empty space here, and filling it might not be correct. Or you may have done it in the wrong format, like this is a lot longer than it is shorter. Or it's missing the element of food, whatever the case may be. If this is the case, and this one say that it's a little too crowded, like there's not a clear perspective. I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at it or from what angle I'm looking at it. I may say, okay, you could either scratch these two and try to come up with one, or try to fix some of these compositions by either cropping where it's interesting, like this area that's kind of interesting so you don't have all this white space, or see if you can fill this with background, like maybe there's a something way far in the background, like a mountain or a hill or some grass or something to give me a sense of where I'm at in space, okay? So either when I have two compositions that aren't quite working, I may say, try to think of one altogether or try to fix the current compositions if you can. And I'll usually try to lean you in one direction or the other. Like for instance, I think this one might be easier to fix either by cropping or by including a little bit more in the background, just really far away. Okay, and this one I would think would be a little bit harder to fix because the perspective is just really difficult to understand in this one. Okay, so that's the kind of feedback that you might get depending on what your feedback is what you have for homework in terms of refining. I'm just going to go back up to this example here. If you are one of those that are ready to start tracing this week, you may want to look at the next week. In week 3, I will give you the advice to go to look ahead if you're already done. So you might, it says no, look ahead for access to project 1 design templates. Okay, so you would want to go to week 4 and check out to see the templates there that you could download so that you can start tracing in Illustrator. Okay, you might want to take a look at some of those lectures as well. Okay, so don't forget to turn this into La Lima under week 3 assignment. And this concludes the homework for week 3. If you have any questions, 808-343-9565 or iled@hawaii.edu.